Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
Yeah, you're very welcome along to Friday Night Racing on Off the Ball. It's Johnny Ward standing in for Ger Gilroy today, and we have a bumper show for you today. We're brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie or follow the Twitter account at HRI Racing, hashtag every racing moment. Now, next year it'll be 270 years since the first steeplechase took place. It was a race, a match indeed, that involved a couple of friends who had a bet, and that was between Doneraile and Buttevant. I think they started off in Buttevant and ended up in Doneraile. And 269 years later, Doneraile's finest son, Darragh O'Keeffe, is leading the jockey standings in Ireland, and he's going to come on the show about to talk to us about Bob Ollinger, who he rides at Goran tomorrow, and about his lead indeed at the top of the jockey standing so far. Later on we'll have Tom Malone to come in to discuss what's been a little bit of a controversial week in racing, and the toe 10 to follow as well ahead of the jumps. But before all of that, Darragh O'Keeffe is no stranger at all to going through his mounts. He's 7 rides at Goran tomorrow. I think he's 4 at Navan on Sunday. But we found a video that goes back to Glen Bay in 2015. This man is a pro at the game.
Okay, we're in the parade ring here just before the first in Glen Bay. It's day 1 of the annual 2-day extravaganza here in Ross Bay Beach. Darragh O'Keeffe's come to have a quick word on his 5 rides he takes here this afternoon. Darragh, we're going to start in the 12-2, Temple Hill Tamara. She ran a blinder in Dingle.
Yeah, she ran a corker in fairness to her. So she actually surprised me how well she ran, but hopefully she'll run a good race again today.
Yeah, Darragh, it's easy for you to come on now all these years later to talk about 7 rides at Goran when you were doing this at Glen Bay as a kid. How are you getting on?
All good, Johnny. No, thanks. Yeah, no, definitely. We had that was, I suppose, one of the, the advantages at the pony racing scene. When you used to get interviewed like that. But no, all is well now. Thanks to God.
In terms of racing on the beach and all that, it's been Alan Sweepen had a very interesting article in the Racing Post recently. But we had Dylan Brown McMonigal on a couple of weeks ago on the show, and I was kind of making the point before you came on here that you guys, when you start racing at the track, you're almost, if you're not ready-made jockeys, you're halfway there from having done that.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like the pony racing scene, it's brilliant. You see all even the flat apprentices. As you said, mentioned there, Dylan Brown, McMonigal, and all the other lads, Ben Cohen, and everyone. We all started from there, and it's just a huge helping point, I suppose, for a young lad or girl, starting out, just to have an advantage, and it's just to, I suppose, gain experience as well, galloping and riding a finish and stuff like that. And as you said, I suppose with the COVID and everything, it was tough for the pony racing scene to get back going kind of this year, and in fairness to them, they did, they got a bit of fundraising and stuff, but hopefully it'll be able to keep going, to help these young people, the next generation coming along again, to get them onto the track with the experience under their belt.
What ride were you, or what age or other when your first ride as a pony rider?
My first ride was in Newmarket in County Cork. I started when I was 10 on a pony called Here Comes the Pain. It was my first ever ride in a pony race, and he actually won the same day. And it was some experience, you'd even when I was starting out, you'd Connor King was there, and you'd Shane Gray, and you'd a heap of lads that were there. Ricky Dial was even riding the same day I was there, and there was plenty lads now that you see every day riding that were, they had a couple of years done before I started. But normally people kind of start now between 10 and they progress from there then.
Obviously, Dylan raced away with the apprentice title on the flat. Has there been much chat about this prodigy in the National Hunt game? I know you've come through yourself. You've had an unbelievable time of it, but I guess he's created some headlines already.
Yeah, definitely. Even when Dylan was pony racing, you could see that he was very good. And again, you could see, every year that he was improving, and that's it with the pony racing as well. It's if you do it for a couple of seasons, you have you kind of, you're able to improve your riding each season or each weekend, which is very beneficial, and as you said, he's burst onto the scene, and I'm sure, even he tell you that, the pony racing was a huge help to him on getting the, the experience and everything coming to the track then.
You are from proper national hunt country.
Yes, as you mentioned there about the steeplechase from Budafin to Doneraile, how many years ago now that started and stuff. But no, definitely where I'm from, there was always a lot of kind of pints and stuff around where I am, and as I said, the family had a background as well in it. So no, we're definitely from a horsey area and background as well.
Your stats so far, looking at before we came on the show, if you're not familiar with it, and I guess it's so early in the season, and I know Darragh is a very big price with the bookies to win the Jockeys Championship, because Paul Townend is coming back and Rachel Blackmore is obviously going to have a lot of good rides. But Darragh is the leading jockey in Ireland at the moment, and this season he's had 43 winners. I think what struck me though, Darragh, you've 43 winners, your strike rate's very good, but the sheer number of rides that you've had over the last 3 years or so, and the amount of trainers. I think you're riding for 6 different trainers tomorrow, for example. So you're putting in the hours, I guess, and you're putting in the miles as well.
Yeah, look, definitely. As you mentioned, that's one thing since I started was that in fairness, I've always trainers have been always very good to me in getting rides and stuff. But look, it's all about building up as much contacts as you can. Trying to go to school and ride work for whoever needs you, and as I said, Gary Cribben is my agent, and he's done a terrific job since I started to get me a huge variety of rides from different trainers, and it's a great help.
And was it always I suppose likely that you'd end up going down the path of being the jockey, or is it in your family at all?
Yeah, no, definitely it is. As from a very young age, I suppose, the dream was to be a jockey, and I used to always have great interest in racing and stuff, and as my dad and granddad and stuff used to be jockeys, and a cousin in England as well, there was a jockey, so no, it was in the background, and I had a great interest in it, and definitely then when I started pony race, and it was all I wanted to be, was a jockey from there on in then.
And any interest in other field sports then, or anything else?
Yeah, I used to love playing hurling and football. I suppose when I was in school and that, it was kind of easier to kind of play it then. You go training in the evening time and stuff like that. But then I suppose when I took out my license and started going racing, and when I started working full time, it just made it that much difficult then to try and do it. So I had to stop that then. But no, I had great interest in playing hurling and football, and I'd still like to play it if I could now, but unfortunately, with being so committed to race riding and riding, working and everything, it's hard to make time for it.
The last time we spoke to you was after the Savills Chase at the Dublin Racing Festival. How you mentioned it already, but how tough was that whole spell of racing without crowds? And I know the show was going on, but it must have been a bit surreal as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. Look, it was tough for everyone involved, I suppose. The jockeys, trainers, the stable staff, everyone. To be behind closed doors, and you walking into the winners' enclosure, and there's only a handful of people there. But I suppose everyone was just everyone was so just glad to have racing back. So we kind of just got used to it, and as you mentioned there, even like when I won the Savills Chase that day in Leopardstown, it was strange, I suppose, not having my family or anything there, but it's in saying that, walking back into the winners' enclosure, all the people were racing that day, they were all congratulating you and everything. So coming back in, I felt like there was thousands there, in one sense. But it was tough, when there was no crowds and that. But I suppose everyone was just so glad that the race was able to go ahead, that all we could do was just get on with it.
I think one of the things that has skewed me most over COVID is just you lose concept of time, and of course that race was at Christmas, it wasn't in February, but whatever time of year the race was, if you could just talk us through it again. I guess you're not interested in last week's dinner anymore, and you have to move on to the heights of the weekend ahead, but just that race itself, because you're riding a horse that had a bit of stamina to prove, and I don't know, could you have ridden a better race?
No, like in fairness, it was just I was just so glad to have gotten to ride on the day. I remember looking at the declarations and just seeing my name down beside Absolute Hard, and that was just it was unbelievable really to be taking part in the Savage Chase and as you mentioned, like I suppose everyone was kind of saying that he wasn't that he wouldn't stay because he had tried the trip at Punchestown after he won at Cheltenham, but he was only a 4-year-old then and I think Delta Work won the race and he beat him quite well that day, but I suppose he was after being to Cheltenham that season and everything, so and he didn't try the trip since then. So as you said, looking at his runs previously before the Savage Chase, you would have said that that he wanted to step up and trip. But in fairness, the race itself went according to plan. Like there was no pressure, there was nothing. Like Henry had just told me, just to follow way around and get him jumping and get him into a good rhythm and just ride him to come home and in fairness he definitely did that. He flew home.
You've had 53 rides for Henry so far this season, 23% strike rate with 12 winners, and obviously Bob Ollinger tomorrow will take a lot of headlines, but that relationship you're developing with him must be something that you're really cherishing.
Yeah, it's great. Since I started riding for him, like that was my first winner for Henry was in the Savage Chase that day, and in fairness, he's been very good to me since. With Rachel getting unfortunately injured in Clarny that day, I fell in for plenty spare rides there, and I had plenty winners from throughout the summer as well. With Rachel being out injured, so as I said, he's been really good to me.
Like, how have you been injury wise? Because you look at Jack Kennedy suffering yet another injury recently. Davy Russell came back after what was a bad injury. You mentioned Rachel Blackmore's setback, which itself was quite severe. Sean Flanagan, vertebrae in his back injury that he suffered in a schooling incident there at the start of November. He'll be out till roughly Christmas. You're obviously making hay, but you're obviously keeping sound as well. Yeah,
and look, that's a big thing, and sometimes you can I don't think you can avoid injury. I suppose everyone gets their share of plenty of falls and stuff, and you're just hopeful that that you'll walk away in one piece. But I suppose, as you mentioned, nobody can. You can't do anything to avoid it. I suppose only be fit as you can and stuff. But as you said, touch wood, I've been lucky, and as you said, then when you're not injured, you have a chance of riding winners, I suppose, and getting other rides as well.
Is there ever fear? Like, does it ever dawn on you how dangerous this pursuit is, how dangerous your life is? Because obviously you can't let that seep in, or you won't be the jockey that you are. But I think people take it for granted sometimes just how fraught with risk this whole game is.
Yeah, I suppose like it is a risk, but I suppose every jockey that wants to be a jump jockey kind of they know that you're going to fall regularly, and injury is going to come your way. But I suppose some people like the risk, and as I know I do, and I wouldn't change what I do for anything. Whatever about the falls and that. But when you ride winners like Absolute Hard and the Savage Chase, it makes up for everything, and the adrenaline rush and everything that you get out of it, it's great, and it's a great sport, and as you said, there is plenty of risk with it, but there's plenty of rewards as well if it goes your way.
Yeah, because we had Mark Fish Enright on not long ago, and he admitted that he does not get anywhere near the thrill out of riding on the flat as he does riding over an obstacle, namely a fence, I suppose, and the vast majority of the population will never ever get that experience. But what is it like riding, for example, Absolute Hard or even a good 2 mile chaser at speed?
Yeah, look, the adrenaline rush it's class. Like going fast down to fences, and when you've won this jumping well, there's no really better feeling in the world, for me anyway. And as you said, like it's just a great sport. It's a great thrill, no matter what distance really is. If you're on a good jumper and stuff, and if you're getting a good ride off the horse, there's nothing better than it.
And just looking there now today at your last 14 days, for example, these are the trainers in the actual chronological order that you've ridden for: Ray Hackett, Michael O'Connor, Paul Stafford, Paul O'Flynn, Henry de Bromhead, Eddie Cawley, Henry de Bromhead, Mick Winters, Martin Hassett, Andrew McNamara, and we extend our sympathies as well to Andrew on the loss of his dad of the same name, Andrew, one of the gentlemen of the game. Mouse Morris, Seamus Jorak, Pat Kelly, Davy Fitzgerald, Ray Hackett, Tom Givney, Gavin Cromwell, Philip Rothwell. It's just some amount of trainers. So Gary's obviously putting in the hours.
Oh yeah, Gary's like he's top class. In fairness, he's as you mentioned out the list there. The variety of trainers that I ride for, it's great, and he's been very helpful to me since I started, and in fairness, he definitely puts in the hours anyway.
What's your attitude then to riding a 25 to 1 shot? We'll see you've 7 rides tomorrow now, so obviously you're not going to be on favourites all the time. Do you want to ride in every race, or are you already becoming a bit more choosy maybe?
I know, like I'd as if Gary's happy for me to ride in whatever price they are, no matter what price they are in any race, as long as he's happy for me to ride them, then I'm happy, and I think, I'm only 21, so I don't think that, I'm in a position that I could be picking or choosing my rides, like I've seen it throughout the summer, you win on big price horses, and sometimes the favourites don't win, or sometimes you're riding an odds-on shot and you think that it's a certainty, but nothing's a certainty, and you could get beaten by the outsider of the field, so as my motto has always been that if Gary's happy for me to ride it, then I'm happy, So
you're putting faith in your agent that he's not putting you on a yak at the same time, that he's putting you on something that there's some benefit to you here.
Yes, exactly, and like even if you have to ride an outsider for a trainer that maybe could repay it, the following day or the following week with a horse that could have a chance. Like every horse you ride for a trainer, they all can't have chances. You have to ride some horse that's probably that might be fairly moderate, but they have to be ridden as well. I think you have to show some bit of payback towards the trainer and ride them. As you said, you might have to ride one that might have no chance, but then next week they might repay, and with a horse that does have a chance.
And do you essentially see yourself as a freelance jockey at the moment?
Oh yeah, like definitely. As you said, I ride for everyone. Obviously, I'm associated with Sean and Bernardine Mulrine as well now, and I ride for them. But otherwise I ride for as different trainers, and as you see with all the trainers you mentioned there, I try to do my bit for them when I can as well.
How did the Sean Mulrine link come up?
I rode a couple for him in Punchestown one day, and then I was just chatting to him and stuff, and as I said, then he's a few horse in training now with Martin Brazel, and he's a few with Henry the Bromhead as well and stuff. So as you said, I had a couple of winners from there during the summer as well, and I've won from tomorrow as well, Lonesome Boatman in a maiden hurdle, and Sunday in Navan as well, I've a ride from. So it's a nice link up to have, and hopefully now we'll have a bit of success in the future.
Yeah, and Sean, again, I think he's seen the good days and the bad days in the game, but famous colours, and often seen to victory in big races as well. Talking to Gavin Cromwell as well, he seems to be sort of spreading these jockeys around this season, and you're an example of that. I think you're in 1 day a week with Gavin, are you?
Yeah, I tried to get into Gavin as well. He's plenty of horses, and he seems to be using plenty of jockeys as well, and he's using a variety of them. But in fairness to him, he's been good to me. Ridden a good few winners from over the summer there as well, and rode a winner from last week in Fairyhouse Gabinaco. So as I said, he's been good to me.
So you must be flat out in terms of travelling all the time, yeah? Yeah,
like that definitely. Every day I'd be somewhere. Whether you'd be in Henry's or Gavin Cromwell's, or even I'd be in Martin Brazel's, I'd be in Enda's. You try to juggle it where it suits when I'm going racing then as well. If you know what I mean, where I could, if the race was up the country, I go into a yard that is close by or something like that, or then there's no race, and you try to maybe go somewhere in the morning and meet someone in the afternoon then as well.
Without prying into your private life now, if you were on Tinder, you'd have to be fairly honest and say to the prospective partner, you're not going to see very much of me here.
Well, you'd I suppose,
or would you put it better than that?
I suppose you definitely want to put it better than that anyway. I'd say you'd have no luck on Tinder, I'd say.
I think, Sean, sorry, Darragh's answered that question very, very well, but how will you answer the question of riding? This is pressure now tomorrow. You're riding Bob Olinger in the first race. Whether or not you're on Tinder tonight, whether or not you're having a date tomorrow night, this horse is already 5-2 favourite for the what was the Marsh Chase at Cheltenham. Obviously looked extremely exciting last season. Rachel Blackmore isn't riding in Goran tomorrow, which leaves you open for the ride, and this is tremendously exciting.
Yeah, look, it's unbelievable. As you mentioned, with Rachel going to Haydock and everything, and you can only ride at the one meeting in England now as well. So it's great, and I'm very grateful to Henry de Bromhead and owners Rob Core for putting the faith and putting me up in him. He's a high class horse, and he's probably the most exciting novice chaser this year. So hopefully all goes well tomorrow, and as I said, I'm very much looking forward to it. I
can't remember now when he was scratched the other day. You weren't down to ride him then, I presume?
No, Rachel was down to ride him in Punchestown. I was declared, and the other horse, Mouse Morris's horse, French Dynamite. So
that worked out quite well for you as well.
Yeah, it worked out great. On the day, he looked French Dynamite. He's a very good horse. He's very good form last year in running good races in Grade 2s and stuff like that. And, we were looking at him, you were always hoping that he turned into a better chaser. And I thought he couldn't have been any more impressive than the last day in Punchestown. He jumped really well and thought he won impressively.
Always nice to winner for Mouse.
Yeah, Mouse, he's a great character as well. And in fairness to him, he's a very good trainer and you're great that you're being put up on horses like him. It's great.
I'm actually at his son Jamie. His son Jamie has a DJ set in Pygmalion later on. Do you reckon Mouse will turn up?
Yeah, I'm not sure now whether that'd be Mouse's scene or not, but no, that's right. Yeah, I know Jamie. He's a good fella, and he's getting on. He's getting on well with the music.
I think he'll go out for a cigarette, and Mouse will be there in the smoking area. But you never know anyway. But talk to me more about Bob Olinger, because his performance at Cheltenham was sensational. It was one of those weeks when I suppose nothing could go wrong for Rachel. He was sent off 6-4 favourite, but it was his turn of foot and everything about him, and he's by Sholokov, who obviously was the sire of Don Cossack. People are wondering what this horse can do. Tell us about how he's schooled. Tell us about Henry's very despondent a lot of times. He's very he isn't the most enthusiastic about his horse's chances necessarily, but I'm sure even he can't be too downbeat about this lad.
I know, sure, like what everybody has seen of him last year, you could not only have been impressed with him, in all his runs really, and I suppose more so in Cheltenham, the performance he put in, I thought was spectacular. The way he won, even being over there last year, even watching him, even he was the one horse that went to the line, and you could have said that could have went around again almost. I thought it was a very good performance, and I've schooled him the other day, and in fairness, he jumped well, and everybody seems happy with him at home. So again, it's great that he's going, having his comeback run tomorrow. His first run since Cheltenham, and hopefully, as you said, he puts in a clear round and puts up a good show.
You strike me as somebody that would be well able to kind of look to the future as well, and I guess you are reflecting on the fact that I will or may lose the ride on this fella when Rachel comes back, but I am absolutely delighted to be riding him at any stage.
Oh, definitely. In a jockey's career, you hope to find horses like Bob Olinger and absolute hard to ride, but as you said, when you get your chance in them, you hope to take that, and as you said there, I can nearly guarantee I probably won't be riding the next day, but to me, it's just great to be getting the chance to ride him tomorrow, and whatever happens after that then is out of your hands, but as long as tomorrow goes well, and it's just it's a privilege to get a ride on such a high profile horse.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of Celtic fans will be back in Lonesome Boatman in the maiden hurdle. This isn't a bad horse either for your retained owner. Yeah, no, it's
Lonesome Boatman. He's after a couple of nice runs. He had a good run the last day in Galway. He ran. I was very happy with him in Galway, and he seems to have straightened up since then and everything, and Martin's happy with him, and again, hopefully, he's come back and tripped to 2 miles. But hopefully, it's a competitive maiden hurdle. Though you've a couple in it that look smart, but in saying that, he has the experience under his belt and everything. So hopefully, he runs a nice race.
Unfortunately, we're going to have to very shortly come to the end of our conversation here with Darragh. It's been a pleasure having him on. But Darragh, I can't but mention your 11 mounts at the weekend, and hopefully you come home safe and sound after 11. Bob Ollinger on Taoiseach, Stanfield, Lonesome Boatman, Heliki Conti, Young Fitzy, Shanery, Faith Duval, Yenelik, Wowsham, Gaspar Desoy, and that's for your retained owner as well in the final of your mounts at Navan. So if it isn't Bob Ollinger, what are you most hopeful will win from the other 10?
Yeah, looks said you'd be hopeful, Bob Ollinger, but I think I have a nice book of rides tomorrow. I think horse of Paul Trainer's
Stanfield.
I thought he ran well in Stansfield. Yeah, I thought he ran well in Fairyhouse the last day. He's a nice weight tomorrow. He's only 10.5. I thought he might. It's not a big field. I thought he might have a chance tomorrow it's a small runner race, but it looks competitive. But I thought at 10.5, I thought he might have a squeak. And
you still have a few hours in the day for a bit of crack that doesn't involve racing as well.
Yeah, exactly. Sure, as you said, I might have a look at Tinder or something. Or
keep an eye out. We don't know what's going to happen, but on whatever about the tender front, have a great weekend on the racing front, and buzzing for you on Bob Ollinger tomorrow.
Cheers. Thanks very much, Johnny.
Yeah, that's Darragh O'Keeffe, who's racing away, although I think you can still back him at 25-1 to be the top jockey. So he's cognizant of the fact that the big guns are coming back, but Darragh's racing away at the moment, leading the jockey standings in Ireland, and a top rider, a guy with so many years ahead of him and who has been free of injury. After the break, we're going to go to Tom Malone to talk about the racing and 10 to follow.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
You're welcome back. Thanks to Darragh O'Keeffe for enlightening us there on what it's like to be flying high in the Jockeys Championship. Tom Bugsy Malone, how are you?
How are you, Johnny? You well?
I'm not going to lie, this is just cropped up my screen here on the Racing Post. Tim Bailey's been approached about a new Netflix racing documentary, the sports version of Formula One's Drive to Survive, and the Gold Cup winning trainer is convinced it would do the sport a huge amount of good. I mean, this is a complete no-brainer. We've been saying this for ages. Racing's Drive to Survive.
I mean, look, Drive to Survive, look what it did for Formula One. And like, Johnny, like obviously we're racing fans and people are going mad for Formula One. So you think, well, my God, if you can do that to Formula One, imagine what they could do with racing, considering all the amazing kind of storylines you get over the course of the year. And even if you consider that it culminates in Cheltenham and a real kind of, clash of Ireland and the UK and all of that kind of history associated with it, it's just it's the absolute no-brainer. It should be brilliant.
Yeah, because I have been on here a couple of times. I think Joe and Ger, just to name but two, have mentioned Drive to Survive. I presume these people have somewhat, they know about Formula One, but it does seem to have changed. Like, people who'd no interest in it seem to have an interest in something they didn't think they had an interest in, and a lot of people could be bitten by the racing bug if they actually give it a try.
Yeah, you have to think so. And as we said, there are so many kind of strands to racing that kind of get pulled together. You think about even the journey of a horse before it lands on the race course, the breeding side of it, the husbandry, where they go, the stories of how they go from, they're broken, they go to maybe a store sales ring, they go point to point and they get sold again at a big Cheltenham sale or something like that before they end up in one of the big yards. And, then you kind of track their career. Like this weekend we'll be at Navan, you'll be looking at who wins the Monksfield, thinking, the likes of Sam Crow and the horses that are ultimately going to be, roundabout favourites, you would think, for a Ballymore or an Albert Bartlett or something like that in 4 months' time. And it's just that journey. And it's something that really lends itself to a long-form documentary, you think, like I say, one that just bounces over the course of a season and even over the course of several seasons, particularly National Hunt. And
it's a great game to be involved in. I've been overwhelmed by the feedback after my little fall off my bike last week. And then during the week, a friend of mine says, the guy who runs the Specialised shop on the Naas Road, he bred Altior, and go out to see him, he might look after you. Who knows what might happen yet? The racing game is unbelievable, and the 10 to follow, if you were to win it like you did in a hack canter against me and the aforementioned Ger, is a bit of crack as well. Now, we are kind of eating into the jumps one this season with myself, Ger and Danny Mullins, but you must have enjoyed your own kind of moment in the sunshine. You absolutely hacked up.
Yeah, absolutely hacked up. It was a really nice, and just to take the Champion Stakes on the last day as well. Even though it's some horses that didn't. We all have hard luck stories, Johnny, and not including Oxted was definitely my hard luck story. But Sealiway was the Brucey bonus for me at the end, just to make sure, so I could do like Miguel Barcelona and stand up in my irons and shake my stick as I went over the line.
And you actually can ride horse as well, so you could do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I like to think so anyway.
Yeah, and in terms of the jumps tend to follow this season. Like, you reflect on the Irish win in Cheltenham at 23.5, which was quite incredible, and a bit of goo-boo if you're a British racing fan maybe. But we have an avalanche of good horses to go into the season, and I guess from your perspective, I've been quite good at the 10 to follow. Unlike me, what would you suggest is actually the good way of going about this?
Oh, the weird thing about it, the one good thing is that you don't have to try and look through kind of all the bumper form, because there are very few novice hurdles involved. So it's kind of novice chasers. There's really strong. I mean, the Stayers hurdle, if we can get one Stayers hurdle kind of banker for the year, you think maybe a Time Hill, if he progresses from his run, like you pick up some amount of points for those staying hurdles. If you get some, if you had a likes of the big books, because he would have been an absolute winning machine for you. So I think there's 3 or 4 staying hurdles over the course of the year. That's an obvious one. I think you can't leave out Honeysuckle. She's going to go to a Grade 1 next month, and then take that well-worn path that might even end up, if you look beyond the Champion Hurdle, in the 2.5 miler at Liverpool after that. So you would think, if she keeps her unbeaten run intact, she's going to be exclusively in Grade 1 company as well. So they just be 2 kind of straightforward ones. And then it's really weighted towards staying chasers as well. I mean, the one you got, I suppose the one that's going to separate everyone is the 2 mile division. Who are you going to settle on? Are you going to go with Energumene? Are you going to go with Shishkin? We see the likes of Captain Guinness come out and done really well last weekend. So I think it's kind of or where does Alaho go? Does he go back for a Ryanair? Would he chance a 2 miler as well? So it's those Grade 1 chases that are really going to make a difference, and obviously that starts this weekend with the Betfair Chase.
Yeah, the Betfair Chase indeed. And just remember that Friday Night Racing is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. And in relation to the 10 to follow with the Toad, it's 0 points so far. The game is just getting underway. Himself, Ger and Danny Mullins will be competing. And obviously the money won will go to the Irish Injured Jockeys Fund. And you can visit tote.ie to keep an eye on the 10 to follow leaderboard and to enjoy Tote Guarantee on all Irish and UK racing. I know Navan is a track that's close to your heart. And we had Noel Mead on last week celebrating 100 years of what for me is an iconic and I think it's a bit of an icon really, or a bit of a treasure in County Meath, Navan Racecourse. And Troytown on Sunday, it's another kind of competitive renewal. Some very, very good horses taking each other on over hurdles as well, Hollow Games and Ginto from the same stable. It's going to be a hell of a card on Sunday, Tom.
Yeah, and I guess one of the things that's often kind of wellied at one of the criticisms of the sort of jump season is that often, all connections just protect the horses. They don't run the good horses against each other. Well, like one man who never gets that memo, to be fair, is Gordon Elliott. And when you see he's running Hollow Games and Ginto, I mean, the pair of them collectively cost the guts of 650 grand, nearly 700,000 at the sales between them. So, to put the two of them face to face in the Monksfield on Sunday as well is just incredibly sporting behaviour, and just what we kind of need to get the jump season going as well. Obviously, got the Betfair Chase as well on Saturday, but you just need to you want to see these novices come out and take each other on, don't you? And then obviously the Troy 10 as well. I would be, as has been the case, Gordon absolutely loves this race. 4 years in a row, 5 years in a row there from 2014 onwards. And I wouldn't be massively surprised if he takes it again. I like the chances of Definite Plan. So he's 8-1 in a place. Obviously, poor old Jack Kennedy, my goodness, he knows nothing but bad luck. He's injured again. Gave the horse an absolute peach in Cheltenham when last seen. He's obviously as tricky as they get. But, replacing Jack with Dennis O'Regan is certainly no loss. And, if there's ever a man to just trick a horse round and, literally trick him into winning a race, it's surely Dennis O'Regan. So at 8-1, I think Definite Plan can keep Gordon Elliott's grasp on the Troy 10 going. Yeah,
I referenced Jack as well in terms of, as you say, he's had a catalogue of injury mishaps and obviously another one again, but his boss Gordon Elliott, 17 runners at Navan, and I think Willie might have 4 or 5 runners, Willie Mullins. So at this stage of the year for Gordon as well, it is a case of trying to strike while basically your main rival is just creeping into getting his horses back.
Yeah, it's been pretty strange. You look at Willie Mullins, he's only had 3 runners in the last, 17 runners and 3 winners in the last, 3 weeks. Gordon Elliott's had 108 runners and 27 winners in the last 3 weeks. So it's obviously a completely different battle plan the pair have for their stable. But obviously Gordon has this huge numbers, and Willie very much tapering those horses and their performance towards those big money races, just like you'd have in the 10 to follow over the course of the season. Yourself, Willie, even next weekend we've got Fairyhouse coming up, and Willie Mullins won't be nearly as well represented as the likes of Gordon Elliott will. But then once you come the following week, we get to Punchestown, and then we're looking into Christmas, and that's when the weapons start to be unholstered, I suppose.
Yeah, I quite like Lord Royal in the Troytown, and that's the Labrocks Troytown Handicap Chase 250. I just think he's run at the track 2 runs back when he had a very nice horse. The Big Dog in third is interesting. But Tom, before we finish up, it is that time of the week where we talk about some news that we rather wouldn't talk about. But this is racing, and a lot of Sundays now you're reading either the Sunday Times or the Sunday Independent, expecting there to be further bad publicity. And if sex sells, so does this. This is what people are interested in. And obviously we have the story about John Warwick, and he was at the centre of a drugs controversy after the Department of Agriculture, Food and the Marine personnel in Gardaí removed prohibited medicines from a County Kildare yard at which he is based last week. He's a 74-year-old man, and there are lots of kind of recriminations here. Who's been there, who's been using his services, so on. A lot of this is fairly benign, but you can read about this online, and I have to be careful about what I say about this, but it's very, very grey. But I think we can all say it's not great for racing's reputation. No, it's not. And the individual in question, I mean, some of the more kind of eye-opening suggestions about this case are that how the surveillance came to be. And it was reported this week that a group of English trainers had actually hired a private investigator to follow him to Ireland. And then when some trainers
denied accessing the yard. A journalist approached him and said, well, actually, there's photographic evidence of your boxes in and out of the yard. So that's an intriguing part of it. I mean, the notion that like I said, it's not much we can say. The individual in question, I mean, sort of his claim to fame in the past is that he treated Snow Ferry for these tendon injuries, and he's sort of a tendon specialist. Now, generally, if a horse gets a tendon injury, it's a very, very bad thing. And, you know, you're talking about best case scenario, minimum sort of 8 months out. By the looks of things, this guy's treatment and the lasering he does, they might be back in 5, which, when you consider how short a horse's career is and how short the season is and how few opportunities there are, that's obviously a massive selling point for someone. So it should also be pointed out that Snow Ferry did actually lose the Prix Jean Romanet for failing a drugs test. So that should be noted as well. Again, who is involved here and what is involved, it's just going to take absolutely ages to come out. The Department of Agriculture, and their vets obviously were on hand. They have confiscated the materials, and there will be endless testing, and it will be quite a long time until all of that sort of comes out in the wash. One thing I would note is that there is, like you say, there are grey areas, but when you're talking about medication and what counts as sort of performance enhancing and what counts as, you know, legal on race days and illegal on race days, there are many, many, many treatments for horses that are legal, but they're just not legal on race days. So many medications for horses will have kind of an allowance time, a clearance time from the system, but they are often not as accurate as you would hope. So there will be like clearance times for certain treatments. So if you take, for example, when Cian O'Connor had his gold medal stripped at the Olympics, that was a clearance issue. It's not necessarily that the horse was taking performance-enhancing drugs. The horse had taken a medication that was clearly noted on his passport, and it was an issue of the substance clearing his system. So this happens quite regularly in horse racing, and it will also be noted that a significant amount of drug issues or adverse tests in horse racing often comes down to medications that have not cleared the horse's system. So you should probably point that out just from a kind of clarity point of view versus the likes of, you know, the different types of drugs that are available. This doesn't mean that, load of horses are taking steroids and it clears through the system. And that's a completely different thing altogether. But there are, like I say, there are different forms of medication, many of which you're allowed to use, you're just not allowed to use on race days.
Yeah, and obviously the reports claimed by Warwick that he'd worked for Coolmore were basically flatly denied by Coolmore. So I suppose from my perspective, I just have an open mind in all of this, because don't jump the gun and think somebody has done something he or she may not have, because it's a really, really grey area. But performance enhancers or not, who's going to win between me, the great Danny Mullins, and Ger in the battle in the 3-horse race, do you think, Tom?
Well, Johnny, I haven't witnessed some of your magnificent anti-post Cheltenham betting in the past. I would surely think you're favourite.
Oh, that's just a beautiful way to end. And I think on that note, we're going to have you on more often, actually. Have a good weekend.
Yes, and you too. Hopefully you have lots of winners.
Yeah, and enjoy the racing, Tom, at Gorn and Navan. Cracking racing this weekend. Friday night racing on Off the Ball is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. Thanks, Tom. Ger and I will be back next Friday with more racing goodness. You can get us on streaming on the OTB social channels at 3 p.m. And we're also on the radio every Friday night at 8 p.m. And I presume a lot of you now are going on to Tinder to see what young O'Keeffe is up to. We'll talk to you next week.
Friday Night Racing
On Off the Ball.
brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.